As one we rise. How FDR's New Deal reestablished American agriculture. In the early 1930s, American farmers faced conflicts due to reduced agricultural demand, declining crop prices, and the government's inaction to rebuild the economy, following the stock crash of 1929. In response, President Roosevelt created the New Deal, a compromise to promote agriculture, boost crop prices, while elevating the American economy, giving rise to current governmental approaches.
After the end of World War I, the Roaring Twenties were a time of great prosperity, with the American economy booming and new technologies emerging. Farmers' incomes multiplied, and with the money, loans were taken to acquire more land and the newest machinery. These devices made farming effortless, resulting in a high supply of crops but not enough demand. This crop surplus led to a drop in produce prices, with the bushel of corn depreciating from $1.35 to simply 65 cents. However, the decreased cost prompted farmers to produce even more, needing to pay their loans. On October 24, 1929, the most devastating stock crash in American history occurred, pushing crop prices even lower, with the bushel of corn dropping to just 8 cents. To make matters worse, in 1930, a decade of dust storms began in the Great Plains region, infamously known as the Dust Bowl. These storms picked up millions of tons of topsoil, leaving the land infertile. Many farmers went bankrupt and the government seized their property. Now, with nothing left, these farmers were left jobless in search of new prospects.
The stock market crash sent the U.S. economy spiraling downwards into the Great Depression. The Depression had a devastating effect on personal income and tax revenue. Unemployment in the U.S. rose to 25%. Limited government power was the governmental approach of Herbert Hoover, the president. Although he restricted government involvement, some relief acts were passed without excessive federal intervention, and the government hoped to further arrest the falling crop prices by asking farmers to reduce crop production voluntarily. This led to government-farmer conflicts, since the struggling farmers were unwilling to yield, as they were drowning in debt and their trust in the government fell with the Depression.
But what they really needed was an inner thing that nobody could give them. They needed a trust again in something which they had lost.
In January of 1933, Ed O'Neill, a farms union leader, said, "Unless something is done for the American farmer, we will have a revolution in the countryside within less than 12 months." His statement was proven true when in April of 1933, a mob of farmers in Lamars, Iowa burst into a courtroom and dragged the judge off of his bench, demanding that he deny cases involving government seizures of farms. When the judge refused, they threatened to hang him. Luckily, he was rescued, but similar conflicts sprung up all across the nation. Many farmers had given up hopes on reacquiring their farms and wished for government support in recovering the agricultural economy. However, no help was provided, and in 1933, farmers in Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Iowa set up road blockades to stop trucks transporting farm products from entering cities, hoping to increase the cost of goods by lowering the supply. Some farmers even destroyed the cargo. However, this conflict didn't help the farmers achieve their goals, and both sides were left exasperated.
Farmers find no market for their produce.
It was in this tough situation and the country in dire straits that Franklin Roosevelt was elected as the president. FDR came into office with the singular objective to bring the nation out of the crisis. He proposed a compromise for the conflicts of the Great Depression through a series of programs, better known as the New Deal. In 1933, President Roosevelt passed the Agricultural Adjustment Act, or AAA, that paid farmers to destroy surplus harvest and livestock.
President ordered the cattle to be killed. We had about 13 or 14 cows, and they came with tractors and guns and dug a hole and shot the cows and buried them to keep the price of cattle up.
The artificially created scarcity enabled the AAA to double crop prices in the 3 years it was in action, as well as effectively improving the nation's economy. This act required the government to compromise department funding, leading to a reduction in employee income, while the farmers compromised the opportunity to grow their farms and killed off their hard-earned produce and precious livestock. Over 10 million acres of growing cotton was plowed up, and 6 million pigs were slaughtered. The public outcry over the wasted resources prompted the Federal Surplus Commodities Corporation, or FSCC, in October of 1933, which extended the impact of the AAA to the poor by diverting excess farm output through local relief organizations and federal food stamp programs.
However, the AAA was not perfect. This compromise helped the landowning farmers, but many tenant farmers lost their jobs.
That worked well if you were a large landowner and if you were able to put a large amount of wheat or corn or pigs into the program. If, however, you were a tenant farmer, if you didn't own your own land, you could find yourself literally being kicked off the land because the person who owned your land wanted the government payment.
Unneeded in the farms, a large number of Midwestern farmers decided to migrate. The Dust Bowl was taking income as well as lives, but the migration presented a new set of conflicts. With the rest of the nation streaked with unemployment due to the Great Depression, the migrant farmers were unwelcome in their new homes and accused of stealing jobs. While they faced discrimination and hatred, they were desperate, hungry, and willing to face the horrendous conditions in migrant camps. Most migrants were stuck living in dirty and unsanitary camps, thrown together on roadsides from trash and scraps, while wages dropped even further as employers took advantage of the desperation for jobs.
The second key compromise of the New Deal was the Farm Security Administration, or FSA Act, in which the government purchased large amounts of land and sold it back to the farmers with affordable financing. This act was passed to rehabilitate the land and return farms back to the American migrants, thus reducing the conflicts of housing and employment from the migration of farmers. As farmers migrated back to the Great Plains, wages increased due to a decrease in workers for employers. However, this act required the government to compromise by redirecting great amounts of money into this program to deliver loans, while the migrants left their newly founded lives behind for an uncertain future once again.
The New Deal created thousands of jobs, supported a large number of struggling families while leading the nation on the path to recovery out of the Great Depression, thus making it an effective compromise between the government and farmers. The AAA's farmer benefit payments totaled over $1.5 billion, and farmers' cash incomes doubled between 1932 and 1936. 800,000 families were given aid by the FSA, with 2,300 county offices having been set up across the U.S. Loans totaling $100 million reduced farm debts by 25%. By 1934, 1 in 6 Americans were receiving aid. The combination of the New Deal and renewed demand from World War II provided jobs and allowed the economy to come back strongly in a little over a decade.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt revolutionized the interactions between the people and the government, proving the importance of cooperation. For many, he is still remembered as a hero. By taking matters into his own hands and leading the nation out of the crisis, President Franklin Roosevelt proved the importance of a bold and determined leader. His acts are the basis for many social assistance programs, even today, with reduced-cost school meals being a remnant of the Federal Surplus Commodities Corporation. FDR's leadership is still remembered and discussed, with President Bill Clinton writing, "When he came into office during the Depression, he said that the ills of the country could not be addressed without more aggressive involvement by the government. But unlike his predecessor, he quickly realized that with prices collapsing and unemployment exploding, only the federal government could step into the breach and restart the economy."
Franklin D. Roosevelt's unwavering bravery provided hope for the seemingly hopeless economy and suffering citizens, while the Americans' ability to compromise with the government in the crisis has led the U.S. economy to the place it is now. Most importantly, this event demonstrated the vitality of the government and their ability to take action in times of need. President Roosevelt's actions strengthened the bonds between the government and the people forever, proving that divided we fall, but together we rise. As President Roosevelt once said, "In our personal ambitions, we are individualists, but in our seeking for economic and political progress as a nation, we all go up or else all go down as one people."